Most salary negotiation advice teaches you what to say in the room. Learn the script. Know your number. Use silence strategically. Say I not we. And if you work in software engineering or investment banking, that advice probably works reasonably well because you have something most workers don't: transparent market data, competing offers from other companies, and a manager who knows you can leave tomorrow for $30,000 more. But if you work in healthcare, education, retail management, logistics, government, administration, or any other field where switching jobs is complicated and market data is murky, the script alone won't get you there. Today, we're going to talk about how to actually get a raise when you work a regular job. And I'm going to start with the part that happens before you ever walk into that office. Here's the number that makes this conversation worth having. According to a Federal Reserve survey released in May 2024, only 13% of full-time employees asked for a raise in 2023. Just 13%. But of those who asked, 66% received one. 2 out of 3 people who asked got it. 2/3 of people who asked got a raise. And 87% of the time in any negotiation, you get at least something. The problem isn't that asking doesn't work. The problem is that almost nobody asks. And the reason most people don't ask is they don't feel like they've built the case yet. So let's talk about how to build it. The 60 days before the conversation, this is the section that almost no salary negotiation content covers, because it doesn't have a punchy 3-word formula. But for a 9-to-5 worker in a non-tech field, what you do in the 60 days before you ask for a raise matters more than what you say in the 10 minutes you're in the room. Step 1. Know your current market rate. Exactly, before you ask for anything, you need to know what your role pays in your market, not the national average. Your actual local market right now, not 2 years ago. The tools to find this: LinkedIn Salary shows anonymized pay data by job title, location, and years of experience. Filter by your city, your exact title, and experience range. Glassdoor and Levels.fyi are weighted toward tech, but Glassdoor has decent data across healthcare administration, retail management, logistics, and education-adjacent roles. Bureau of Labor Statistics Occupational Employment Statistics, updated annually. By occupation code. By state. By metro area. It's publicly available and sourced from employer data. Look up your O's code and find the median and 75th percentile wage for your role. Indeed and ZipRecruiter, go search active job listings for your title in your city right now. What are employers offering? Those posted ranges are current market data. You're building a range, not a single number. When you walk into the conversation, you want to know the median, the 75th percentile, and the ceiling. Your ask should land between the median and the 75th percentile for your role, experience, and location, unless you have a specific documented reason to go higher. One important note: pay transparency laws now exist in approximately 15 states and are expanding. If you're in a state with pay transparency requirements, employers must post salary ranges. Check those postings. Your current employer may be posting ranges for your own role that tell you exactly where your compensation stands relative to new hires. Step 2. Document your wins from the last 12 months. In dollars where possible. This is the step most people skip, and it's the one that determines whether the conversation is a feeling or a fact. Your manager has a manager. When your manager goes to argue for your raise, they need something to bring to that conversation. If all they have is she works really hard and deserves it, that's a feeling. If they have she reduced customer script 08, how to ask for a raise when you're not in Tech 4 complaint processing time by 40%, handled the Q3 staffing crisis without dropping output, and has been effectively doing the role we'd normally hire a senior level for, that's a business case. Your job in the 60 days before your raise conversation is to document that case. 3 to 5 specific accomplishments from the last 12 months. Quantify them where possible: dollar amounts, time saved, volume handled, problems solved. If you can't put a number on it, describe the scope: how many people, how much process, what would have happened without you. Write this down somewhere. Not in your head. on paper, or in a document you can reference. Step 3. Be visible in a specific way before you ask. 2 to 4 weeks before the conversation, make sure your manager has seen you doing something notable. Volunteer for something slightly above your current scope. Solve a visible problem without being asked. Present something to the broader team. Send a brief summary email after a project outcome. This isn't manipulation. It's sequencing. You want the recent context in the room with you when you ask. If your last notable contribution was 8 months ago and you ask for a raise today, the implicit question in the manager's mind is based on what right now? Give them the answer before they have to ask. Quick question before we get into the actual conversation. When was the last time you asked for a raise or negotiated your salary? Drop the year in the comments. I want to see how long people are going between asks. I want to address the thing half of you are probably thinking right now. Why don't I just switch jobs? Job switchers get bigger raises. Sometimes, not always. Here's the data. 17% of workers who switched jobs in 2025 ended up with lower pay at their new employer. Not the same pay, lower pay. Job switching is no longer the guaranteed raise it was in 2021 and 2022 during the Great Resignation. You lose your PTO accrual, your seniority, your relationship capital, your familiarity with the systems, and sometimes the salary you were promised doesn't account for higher health insurance contributions, longer commute costs, or a worse 401k match. Switching jobs is a legitimate income strategy, but it's not a fail-safe. And for people in roles with real switching friction, teachers, nurses in specific departments, government employees, logistics workers mid-vesting period, it's often not the real option the advice assumes it is. Negotiating where you are is frequently underrated. Okay, you've done the 60-day preparation. You have your market rate data, your documented wins, and a recent visible contribution. Now, the conversation. The conversation. What actually works, keep this to 3 elements. 1. The ask with a number. Open by naming what you're asking for. Not, I was thinking maybe possibly I might deserve a little more, a specific number or percentage. I'd like to talk about my compensation. Based on market data for my role in this area and my contributions over the last year, I think a salary of is the right target. That's it. You've stated the ask. The number you land on, aim for the 75th percentile of your market research, or a percentage increase that gets you closer to it. Most employers in 2024 budgeted 4% salary increases across the board. Asking for 8 to 12% with documented market data and a business case is not unreasonable. It's asking for above average based on above average contribution. 2. The evidence. Delivered as facts, not feelings. 3 accomplishments, briefly stated. Then the market data. In the last year, I also. And I handled. Market data for this role shows a range of I'm currently below the median for my experience level. You are not asking for a favor. You are presenting a business case for a compensation correction. 3. Stop talking. After you state your ask and present your evidence, stop. Let the manager respond. The instinct for most people is to keep talking to fill the silence, often by softening their own ask. Resist it. You've said everything that needs to be said. Here's where I want to be honest about the limits of what I can tell you. A lot of salary negotiation content tells you there's a specific best time to ask right after a big win, during budget planning season, just before your review cycle. And there is something to each of those. But the research across different industries and job types is genuinely inconsistent. In corporate settings, asking during budget planning season is strategically sound. Managers can actually move numbers. In healthcare, school districts, and government roles, compensation is often tied to specific pay scales and fiscal calendars that make individual timing less relevant. In smaller companies, the owner decides on the spot and budget cycles don't apply the same way. I can tell you what works in the general case. What works specifically in your industry, your company culture, and your relationship with your specific manager is something you know better than any advice I can give. Use the framework. Adapt it to your actual situation. Here's the number that should make you pick up the phone to set that meeting. The average salary increase for people who negotiate, 18.83%. That's the average. The minimum in the data was 5%. On a $60,000 salary, 5% is $3,000 a year. 10% is $6,000. 18% is $10,800. That is not a small number. That's the emergency fund built in 1 year instead of 5. That's the car payment gone. That's the credit card balance cleared. One conversation, done once, changes the monthly math permanently going forward. And 55% of workers never have it. Here's the honest reality of salary negotiation for a 9-to-5 worker in a non-tech field. The conversation is maybe 10 to 15 minutes of your life. The 60 days of preparation are what determine whether those 15 minutes go somewhere. And the decision to have the conversation at all is the hardest part, which is why 87% of people who work a full-time job never ask. Your one action this week? Look up the Bell's occupational employment statistics for your job title. Find your O's code. Look at the median and 75th percentile wage for your role in your state or metro area. Write it down. That's step 1 of the 60-day build. You don't have to be ready to ask today. Just start building the case. When was the last time you negotiated your salary? Drop the year in the comments. I genuinely want to see the data. And if you haven't subscribed yet, we post every week for exactly this kind of conversation, practical, real numbers built for people working regular jobs. I'll see you next week.